Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for joining us for NYSAPLS Young Professionals Committee discussion on Are You Doing Enough to Promote the Profession? Today we have with us the YP Committee and guest panelist Andrew Mangini from our PR firm, the Martin Group, as well as Lem Morrison, the chair of our PR committee. Before we get started, I want to go over a couple items just to make sure you all understand our webinar process. So first on the screen, you'll see a dialog box here, and we're going to do a quick sound check. So if you can hear me, please raise your hand, and I'm circling where the raise your hand button is on your GoToWebinar panel. Great, I see your hands going up. And if you have any questions, please type them in the questions box, and I'm circling where the questions box is. Great. I see many of your hands up. It looks like we're good to go. So I'm going to turn everything over to our YP committee chair, Tim Massey. Good afternoon, guys.
Hey, Amber, and thanks for the introduction. Glad everyone could join us today. We have a really exciting conversation. Something that doesn't really get talked about all that much is we always sit around and we complain and we grumble that no one knows who we are as surveyors, but whose fault is that? Who better to educate the public than us? What do we do? Are we telling our customers, both residential, commercial, industrial, what it is that we're doing, how we're providing value to them and their project? That's what we're going to explore today, really understanding that value. We have, as Amber mentioned, we have the pleasure of having two guest speakers. One of them you can see here is Andrew Mangini from the Martin Group, as well as Lem Morrison from the PR committee, who we have via phone today. In addition to that, we have some of our members from the YP committee. As you'll see on the screen, we have Keith Burley, Jason Graff, Ashley Metz, and Mike Lewis. Andrew, would you mind giving a quick introduction of a little what you do with the Martin Group?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. And thanks for the opportunity to speak with you folks. Again, my name's Andrew Mangini, Senior Director of Public Affairs at the Martin Group. Been working with NYSAPLS for, I guess, close to 3 years at this point. I've always been in communications roles, mostly in political communications. On the public affairs side, we view public affairs as kind of the intersection of business, media, and government. That's the role that we often fill, working with statewide associations, like yours, or corporations that have needs in and around Albany, or oftentimes we get hired by a coalition trying to advance an initiative, or someone with a budget fight in Albany. So one of the things that we often get hired to do is serve as translators to help our clients take something that's super technical and turn it into something that the average person can understand. And also I think I bring a different perspective here, because I'm also in professional services. For us, it's trying to teach others how to work with a firm, what they can expect, and what it's like to work with a firm when oftentimes they maybe never have before. So I understand some of the pitfalls and concerns that we all have trying to educate the client that we have, and to make sure that it turns into a positive experience for everyone. So I'm happy to participate in this conversation and look forward to a great back and forth dialogue.
It's a great point you bring up too, and in preparation for this, Andrew was able to bring to the table a lot of the things that just like you said, we're all professionals. We might be in different fields, but we all have the same issues. Communication, making sure our clients understand the product we're providing them. Really interesting stuff, Andrew, and thank you again for joining us. Lem, I know we got you on the line. Want to just say hi for the folks?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here and hopefully offer some guidance. A little bit about me, some people know I'm the PR committee chair, something we've been working on for a few years now, and starting to really get some traction with Andrew's firm, and that's it's been great. So a little about me is I've been a surveyor about more than 25 years in the business, licensed in 9 states. I'm also an adjunct professor in the CUNY system. My role has mostly been leading survey departments, and our clients have been agencies and the commercial sector, but also some construction and residential from time to time as well.
Great, Lem. Thank you so much for joining us, and excited to hear some of your take on a little different ways you might handle some of these items. And we're going to get to introductions with the YP committee members here as we touch our questions. So let's get started. So oftentimes the public's first introduction to surveying is through buying a house. What are some of the approaches that we as surveyors have had to really provide our clients a better understanding of what we do and what they're paying for? Andrew, maybe you can jump in just from a professional services side and really speak to how you handle that.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I think, backing up a little bit, it's like, does everyone here have a good elevator pitch? Can you describe what you do in 30 seconds? Can you describe what you do to your mother or your father easily without getting too technical? Can you describe what you do to an 8-year-old without getting too technical? I think if the answer to any of those questions is no, maybe we need to take a step back and get to the core of what we are doing and what we're trying to communicate. Because I think, sometimes we get get a little too inside baseball, and you're used to talking to people inside your field. And when you're communicating to, you might be communicating to clients that don't have the same level of expertise or experience as you do. So take a step back, make sure that you convey things to them in a way that they can understand it. I mean, one of the things that we do at our firm is before we start working with someone, we have a meeting where we just simply talk about our process, what to expect, various timelines, who they'll be working with, and we kind of have a level set on how we would like to communicate with them, if that works with the client, and what tweaks we might need to make to our process to make sure it works with them and their process. So I think it's important to get off on the right foot so you're not playing catch up. That's the best way to ensure kind of a mutual happiness at the end, is to not have any setbacks, from the get-go. Those are some initial, tips that I have to make sure the engagement kind of starts off on the right foot.
That's excellent, and I think that's a huge issue. Jay, would you be able to speak to that a little bit? How you find the best way to set expectations with your residential clients, or any clients for that matter. Really making sure that they're getting a proposal, making sure that they understand where we're at. Can you just speak to that a little? Nope, I think we're on mute.
I was double muted. I muted myself, and Amber also put the kibosh on my audio. Most of my clients are municipal, so we're dealing either directly with municipal owners or engineering firms. But whether it's our few residential clients or 1,000-person engineering firm, what Andrew said about getting started on the right foot is universal. We've got lots of tools in our toolbox, and we have to write proposals that make the engineer or the property owner understand what we're going to do and what they're going to get from us. So whereas a residential client may say, oh, my bank said I need this thing, it's really important to know why the bank needs it. Do they need an Alta survey? Do they just need an update from a map maybe we signed 20 years ago? But it's all about that upfront communication and managing expectations.
Perfect, and that's exactly what I think is going to lead into, because I know Ashley has a strong opinion on proposals and putting them together and making sure that everybody understands what's going to happen out there in the field. Do you want to touch on that, Ashley?
Absolutely. I came from a background of a lot of residential surveys, and I've only been in the field, for 3 years really, but it was really ground into me from the very beginning, the importance of getting a proposal put together so there's clear understanding between the client and you. And I think there's 4 basic things that you can aim to put into your proposal in order to be able to have that effective communication. But I think the first one that you want to think about is making sure that you and your client understand what you're agreeing to. And that's writing down the work that you're expecting to do. And then if anything changes going forward, also writing that down as well. That way there's a mutual understanding and an agreement that this is the work that you are planning to do, and this is the work that we agree on doing. You also want to establish a budget, and I know that's like the top thing that everybody thinks about when you're putting together a proposal is how much is this going to cost, or how much can I put down in order to get it, but also be able to make a profit. And I think there's a number of things that can be beneficial to be putting on that proposal in order to make your proposal look better. I know some people will just put down a number amount and then just say that's what the budget will be. But you can really kind of break that down even farther to the costs. So you can outline, the time in the field, you can outline the time in the office, and that includes things like deed research and determining the boundary. And outlining these things not only kind of fluffs up your proposal, even though you don't really need to do that, but it also helps clients better understand the process of land surveying, which is, I think, one of the biggest misunderstandings, because we don't have good communication between client and surveyor as to what goes on during a survey. So, a lot of the times when you get a proposal back or you send one out, you get, well, why is this so expensive? Everything's already done for you. You just have to walk out with your little box and go to where the town says. It's not that simple, and I don't think a lot of clients understand that. So your proposal, including, a cost breakdown, really benefits the client to understand just what they're getting in that, proposal. Also, establishing a good proposal just helps you show the client what they are going to get. If you get a person who gets 3 proposals from 3 different companies, if your proposal is good, detailed, and it has a lot of information about what they can expect, it's really good to have that out there, because you'll most likely be able to get the job that way. And you should also set expectations with this proposal. You should set a timeline of when you're going to have the field crew out there, when you're going to be able to turn around the work in the office, and whatever you're going to be able to deliver at the end of the project to the client, whether that be digital or a paper copy of the survey. You need to be able to have your detailed proposal, and it needs to explain to the client or whatever potential client you have just what exactly a survey is. And going forward, hopefully proposals can teach clients about what to expect in a survey.
Just to add on to what Ashley was saying, I think surveyors are in a tricky spot because you don't want to be treated like a commodity. Like if someone's getting 10 yards of mulch delivered to their house, they're just going to go after the cheapest price. So I think we need to convey, the things that we provide that aren't just, what they get at the end. One of the things that I like to do when I'm, pitching a client on work is, try to leave them with 3 key points about why we're the right fit for them. I just had a pitch yesterday with a client, and the main takeaways were, we can do it all, everything in that scope we can do. We know you and your industry. And then I added one other thing that differentiated us from, potentially our competitors. Because I think you kind of need to stand out and let them know why what you are providing is important. You can't assume that they'll figure it out on their own. Sometimes you need to just come out and tell them.
What a good tip there. I think a lot of times we assume that people know what we're doing. hey, we're the guy out there with the camera. They think they know what they're doing, and we don't go and correct them. It's a great opportunity to really add some benefit and clarity to what it is that we do. So another issue we run into is on large projects, large scale commercial projects. Oftentimes the surveyor is the first one on site, the last one on site, and is doing work every single day. But oftentimes it's hard to find where the surveyor's stamp and seal and name and credits being given on that work. For some of the folks here, I'd like to get into how you've provided that value and shown what you've worked on, and really ensure that you're getting that credit and showing the value to the overall client. Andrew, would you want to maybe start us off again with maybe setting expectations for commercial clients and how that might differ from a residential?
Sure. Thanks. And I think Ashley started to hit on this as well, but I think for something a little bit more complex than just like, a residential survey, I think it's important to be clear about, the deliverables that you are going to provide, what they can expect along the way, various reporting that you'll give them. And at the end, it's important to kind of package everything up for them and remind them everything that you gave to them. I think it's a good way to, kind of tie up or put a bow on everything that you did. And it's, because it's also important to, make sure that the communication throughout is, free flowing and you're responsive. Because, one of the things that we see in my field is, the client's always going to remember the relationship they had with you, not necessarily every little thing that you did. So it's important to make sure that we are honest, transparent, and deliver on all the things we said we would deliver on, and remind them that we delivered all the things that we said we would deliver. So it's a pretty basic response there, but it goes back to, setting expectations, delivering, and reminding the client that you delivered on every expectation.
That's huge. Let me ask you a question though. How do you, at these meetings, really identify your decision makers?
That's a good question. I think, one of the things that we do is oftentimes when you're in an initial meeting, the person who's going to make the decision, but you also know the person who was going to be like your day-to-day contact. And it's important to always have, sometimes we have multiple people on an account that maintain the different relationships. We'll have someone on my team that does the day-to-day work and is working with, the person on the client side, but it's on me to maintain the relationship with the CEO, the person who signs our check, every month. So it's taking a strategic approach to, it's not just doing the work. It's how you are maintaining the relationship, how you are communicating with them. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the work. It's, is the lead on the account, having a cup of coffee with the CEO. It's, little things like that have nothing to do with the quality of work, but just show that you care. I mean, did you ask your point of contact how their kid's first day at kindergarten was? Like, little things like that matter and add up and have nothing to do with surveying.
Ain't that the truth? Mike, I know you have a lot of commercial clients that you're dealing with, as well as managing field crews who are dealing with those commercial clients. What are some of the techniques that you've done to ensure that both those clients and your field crews are communicating in a way that shows value to the folks that are on site?
Good question. Typically what I try to do is, communication is key. So I make sure that once we've gone from the, you've proposed on a project, they've selected you as, okay, we want to use you for this work. You go through some sort of a negotiation, you finalize that proposal, and now it's time for field work. At some point along the way, if I know specifically which of my crews is going to be working on that job, I will start to include the party chief in emails back and forth between the client or the client's project manager, making sure that this is who you can go to in the field for a question. If they have a project manager that will be on site, so okay, these two you can communicate through my party chief to me. You can always get in touch with me. Something as simple as inserting a signature line in an email every so often, so they know, here's my phone number. This is my cell phone number is in there. I try to keep in contact with these clients at least once a week, if not more often, depending on the complexity of the project. It really all boils down to how well you can communicate. Things change. You start off, it's almost like a choose your own adventure sometimes. You start off going down a survey route. We need this, and this. Field conditions change. The owner of the project, because we do commercial projects, we do municipal projects. It could be one of the agency we're working for all of a sudden decides, well, we really need more of this and less of that, and it becomes a constant kind of like a moving set of goalposts where you need to be flexible, you need to communicate, and as long as you keep that open with your party chief, with your instrument operators, with your CAD operators, and with the client and their management team, typically you can figure out what they need, what they don't need, and how to provide that in a way that they're expecting to see. Offering up suggestions, you want it this way, we've done it this way in the past, is this going to work for you? Here's an example, type of thing. And that's typically how I try to maintain that conversation and that relationship with the client.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like Jay, do you want to speak to that a little bit? I think that's something that we don't always speak to. Really showing the client our expertise, and pushing that point of what we can provide outside of providing a paper survey to them.
I was just going to add that a lot of times our work gets overshadowed by the engineering. When you're on a conference call with the design engineer and the owner of the project overall, we're playing background music here. It's the engineers are front and center. So as a surveyor, what we like to do is provide some survey specific deliverables. First and foremost, a nice control report. The surveyors, the engineers are not going to really touch that, but it's our way of saying this is what we've established on site. And as this project progresses through construction, there's going to be other surveyors here who are really going to want this. This is step one for us. It's a really good foundation for this project to work on. It's got my logo on it. It's got my stamp on it. It's got my name on it. And the engineers can't muddle with it. The base map, the engineers are going to make gray, and they're going to put all their nice design and big bold line weights on top of it. Maybe we get a logo on the upper right hand corner. Maybe we don't, but we try to stand out that way. Even something as simple as a rebar cap with your company's name on it reminds everyone, hey, that was us. We were here. Yes, I know the engineers sat in their air conditioned offices and made some designs, but we were out here pounding steaks.
Oh, that's great, and I think you really touched on some good points there. Hey, Lem, you're often in the city.
Yeah.
Anything that you're dealing with that we're not dealing with?
Listen, there's some universal things we're hearing, and it's communication. I don't think that we've all been remote, and we're still remote, and we've gotten used to email and things, but there's nothing like picking up the phone. There's nothing like being there in person. And I think Michael was saying about crew chiefs, you really want to add value, and at the same time, you want to empower your staff, keep them. Put them in direct contact. Let them be, let the ground super, the construction people or the site people talk directly to the people doing the work. And I've had a lot of success with that. It makes your staff feel involved. They have agency. They also know they can't really pass the buck as well either. They got somebody to answer to, and that is paid. In construction, that's paid off immensely. Not only in the things that we're talking about as delivering value and recognizing names. Basically, we would have a guy, and he was a therapist for the super. He would sit there and listen to his complaints and all the problems and just yes, I know, and hear him, and they'd complain and share notes. and bring him donuts every time he went to the site. Well, when we were 6 inches off and they needed to pour extra concrete, we didn't get charged. So, you know, there's parts of that go in where you're developing value, but it also comes back to some hard bottom line value too, that I think you can really listen. We're not going to be perfect. A lot of these things are aspirational, but these are the things you aim for. You know, the city stuff, I couldn't agree more with that everybody is saying. You know, you've got your product you're putting out. You know, it kind of depends what you're doing, whether it be construction or municipal mapping or a closure sale. What price is it? You know, what the people are involved, the placement. I mean, those all come down to knowing your client. You know, maybe your client, if it's residential or something, they want quick and fast and cheap. You know, just get it done. But you got to know they don't want anything special. They don't want hand holding. They want it done now. They want it cheap. And you have to know that client. Maybe they're not the talkative type. Just give me a survey now. You know, there may be others that they're planners and they just kind of fell into this job. They really don't know what a survey is. You know, helping them through the process and understanding, developing that trust, knowing your client. You know, and then lastly, in any area that I'm just thinking about, you guys were speaking, is, you know, differentiation. I think Andrew mentioned that. You know, what are you going to do special? How are you going to take your special survey knowledge? And most of the time, it's going to be quiet. Like Jay said, we're really, you know, we're behind the scenes people. We mostly are. And sometimes it's being quiet, knowing when to speak up, but knowing something special about lands underwater or something historical about this roadway that was still a paper street but was traveled once in a generation, so it's got some special problem with what they're trying to do. You know, speaking up at those points and providing differentiation on those esoteric topics certainly goes a long way to delivering value on a large scale project, at least. Definitely.
Just to jump in real quick, you know, Lem and Jason started to hit on this, but you know, sometimes it's difficult to get credit, but no one's stopping you from taking credit.
Right.
You know, there's nothing saying that you can't, you know, post on your social media using, you know, photos from the work that you did, unless it's, you know, built into the contract. But, you know, one of the things that we've done in the past is we build into our contracts that we can talk about and promote the work that we are doing. So, you know, get cool footage, talk about it on social media, add it as a case study that you can put on your website, or as a case study that you can fold into, like, you know, the back half of your proposals when you're going out there trying to get work. So, you know, I talked about, like, you know, you can't expect people to assume it. Sometimes you just need to say it. So sometimes you just need to go out there and grab credit and talk about the great things that you did, because sometimes no one else will do it for you.
Tim, do you
Yeah,
mind
that's
if I
awesome.
add a little on that?
Yeah, be my guest, Keith, please.
One of my absolute favorite parts of my job is meeting with the clients. I work at an engineering firm, and I do my best to meet with every single client on the commercial side. So not only do they see the engineer that they're going to be working with, but they get a name to a face to the surveyor that they're going to be working with, and really sit down and go line by line of what exactly we're going to be doing on the survey side and how that builds to the engineering. And then also introduce them to the people that's going to be out doing the stakeout for the driveway or the building or the sanitary. So those clients have an idea of who we are, who they're going to see, who the contact person should be, whether it's myself, the crew chief, and like we've already spoke about, just building that communication, having that open line of communication. Another thing I really like to do as well is when I'm out in the field doing that house stakeout, doing the driveway stakeout, and I see a guy on the excavator, I walk over, introduce myself, and say, hey, how's this going? Is there anything that we can do better to make your job easier? You know, whether it's the way a stake is facing or where we're putting a benchmark. And I find that they realize that I'm trying to work with them, make their life easier. And I've heard from those communications like, hey, we're going to tell our boss that we want to work with you because you're trying to make our life easier. And just kind of explaining why we're there and how we're going to make their life a little bit easier.
Great advice. I always tell folks, I was like, be the easiest person to work with, and you'll make, if you can make other people money, you'll make money. We have time at the end of this. We have a couple people on. Send us your questions. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about with surveyors that you haven't had an opportunity to talk with them about? That's what we're here for. Pop anything you want into the chat. We'll pick it up right at the end and we'll go through it. We might not have a great answer for you, but we'll give you an answer. One of the biggest things that I see is your field crews are the people who interact. You may be the one to call. You may book the job. You might tell the person how much the job costs. You've gotten over that hump. You've already gotten the job. But your field crews are the ones that are out there in the field. Oftentimes, they're meeting not just the person who contracted the survey. They're meeting homeowners. They are meeting site supervisors. They are meeting neighbors and potential clients. What are some of the things that we are instructing our field crews to interact with? And how are they, are we structuring their conversations with our clients? And should we be? Lem, do you want to speak to that real quick? I know it's a little tough where you're headed at, but maybe you can speak to that one.
Let me try that.
May have lost
muted there.
Yep.
There we go. No,
We
I'm
got
here.
you.
I'm here.
Perfect.
So yeah, I think, to me, I'm thinking of that, and I'm thinking two things. And one is the side that we've already spoken about is, the crew chief has lots of years of experience, is good at talking with people, is professional, knows the questions to ask, and that kind of crew chief is when they're equipped with all the things and empowered to make those decisions and discussions is priceless. That's absolutely the kind of people we have. However, that's an aspirational world. I mean, that's not everybody, maybe not even most of our field staff, right? They're in the field because they don't want to talk to people and they like it that way. So I kind of think it goes to, it's probably like a broken record, but it's communicating and it's knowing your staff, right? It's knowing what they're capable of and what's a good medium. So it's really important to know your staff, put them. And I think the best management advice you can ever hear, or at least that I've ever gotten, is, find out what your staff can do and then let them do it. So, are they construction? Are some people are talkers? Put them on a residential work or in commercial. I think, what Keith described about talking to the other folks out in the field, that is just fantastic. But not everybody's like that. So knowing that person, equipping them, and then finding other ways that they can communicate. Maybe they just don't like talking to people. Maybe you don't want them talking to people. I'm not sure. But leaving placards behind, leaving business cards behind, those kinds of things are happy middle grounds.
That's great. Mike, some of the things that you might have, you deal with, you have quite a few field crews that you manage. Anything particular that you've instructed your field crews in how to manage those interactions?
For the most part, I've always kind of, to revert it back to myself, I remember, I started out as an instrument man, rod man, instrument man, became a party chief, and I kind of, I try to provide examples of when I was in their shoes. And one of the things that I grew up in the residential survey field, I wasn't doing large municipal and large commercial surveys. So you always had that homeowner do, why are you digging on my lawn? Why are you all the way down here if you're surveying my neighbor at the other end of the street? And to tie it into, well, how can we further the profession? The easiest thing you can do, why are you locating my house if you're surveying my neighbor's house? Well, I want to respect your property lines. I need to know where your properties are, so I know if there's a conflict between, well, I just had it surveyed. Oh, can you mind if I see a copy of your survey? So I try to impress on my field crews the same thing. You don't want them to spend an exorbitant amount of time explaining to every last neighbor and every last person what they're doing, because then they're not doing the field work. They're you know, you still got work to do, but at the same time, to maybe if you speak to 7 people and you get 2 of them to understand, you know, why are you digging up? I'm at the corner of the road. Why are you digging up? Well, we have this old map and it shows that there's supposed to be a concrete marker that was set here by previous surveyors, and that's what we use to begin our survey and to start our work. It like you said, it empowers the field crew. It helps them learn. You can't take anything for granted that maybe they're not aware of the fact that, hey, you know, those monuments at those corners shown on these old maps, they are kind of controlling factors in what we do here. It educates the public as to what we're doing. So I try to impart on my party chiefs and my instrument men and whoever it is, you know, engage people in conversation, be polite, remember that you're the face of the company, especially when you got a company logo on a vehicle and things like that. You know, don't be afraid to describe what it is that you're doing, as long as you do it, you know, succinctly. And you know, there are definitely times where maybe the client we're working for does not want anybody to know why we're there, and you have to educate your crews to sometimes play stupid, or sometimes come right out and say, I am not at liberty to discuss what I'm doing here. It's part of the contract I have with the client. And just cut them right off. I've used that excuse just because it's the end of the day and I want to be finished. You know, I really can't talk about it. It's kind of a sensitive topic, and I'm bound by a contract to not say anything. But I can assure you that, you know, we're just here to do a survey. You know, we're not doing anything nefarious or whatever have you. And again, it all kind of ties into, you know, helping your party chief, helping your instrument operator, helping your CAT operator, you know, learn more about the profession that they're working in. If they have aspirations to take those next steps and become senior CAT operators, to become party chiefs that are now project managers, to get your license, to maybe open and start your own business, it's just another step in the process of learning what we do and learning how to communicate what we do to other people that don't know. You know, there's social media conversations happen all the time. You know, oh, the neighbor put up a fence and what do I do? And everybody comes out of the woodwork with 19 pieces of, you know, you should do this and you should do that. And nobody ever says, why don't you call a land surveyor and get their opinion and see what they think you should do? And then maybe go out and get a second opinion. Maybe even go out and get a third opinion. If you get 3 opinions that all kind of are in the same line of where you want to go and their costs are more or less the same, maybe you need to hire a surveyor. And your party chief can definitely tell that to the neighbor down the street who comes out to gripe about, you know, whatever it happens to be. Call a surveyor, get an opinion. So, and that goes a long way to building relationships. I've had, you know, through the years at places I've worked, I know for a fact that clients wanted us to do work for them because, you know, not to pat myself on the back, but my coworker and I at the time at a small company, we knew what we were doing. We could explain what we were doing smartly, and we did the work in such a way that the client was happy, and they kept coming back. And that's where the references come in, and that's where everything else kind of just snowballs its way towards, you know, being a successful surveyor.
Just to jump in real quick, Mike hit on this, but, you know, everyone at your company is a spokesperson, whether you want them to be or not. So, I mean, you know, I'm sure you only have, you know, 1 or 2 people that'll talk to the media, but, you know, anyone can be asked any question, whether they're at the, you know, the Tim Hortons down the street getting a cup of coffee, or at a Little League game, you know, wearing a company branded polo. So just taking that into account, that, you know, the way people associated with your brand talk about your company, you know, reflects on every single person.
Excellent, excellent. Ashley, you're I won't say new to the field, but compared to some of us, you've got less time in the field. Let's put it that way. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience, about what your guidance and how you've seen interactions change? I think we're on mute.
I think I'm probably best at doing it because I've had a wide variety of people who I've been out in the field with as my crew chief before. And I've been from the guy who will literally walk by like this with people who don't want to talk to them at all and I've been the talkative one who has, gone out and explained, or at the very least taken questions and things like that, to the person who goes to every door and knocks and says, hey, just so you know, we're land surveying in the area. This is what it is. This is the project. Here's a business card. And I think, in some cases, all of the options that you can go for are the right one. Certainly ignoring people is not going to get your name out there, but it's going to help you get the job done faster. But I think definitely just having a presence, knowing that you represent your company is a good idea to always have in the back of your mind. And I definitely think that, I know in the past NYSAPLS has put out a number of things to help people, promote land surveying. They've got those little door handle notices that you can use, and I definitely think just checking out the website is a good opportunity to learn some things about, promoting yourself, or even just the profession.
Awesome. Keith, got something for me?
Yeah, one thing that we always try to do is when our residential surveys is just go knock on the door. Because some of these residential surveys are just coming from an attorney's office, and they really may not know who's going to be coming to survey their house as it's being sold. So one thing we always do is go knock on the door, introduce ourselves, tell them where we're from, what we're doing, how long we're going to be there, and what they may see us doing, digging up monuments, measuring their house, measuring their buildings, just to have that face-to-face interaction. And so they'll have some expectations of what we're doing and why we're there. Because some of them, for the residential surveys that come from attorneys, they have no idea why we're there, or even why they are doing a survey. So we kind of step them through that process and do some quick education right there. And that's basically on our field crew chiefs to do that. Each and every survey, especially those residential surveys that are coming from attorneys. So just that introduction, that first line of communication with the homeowner, really.
Keith, you have a unique experience that you've been endeavoring in with this pilot program. For those not in the know, Keith has been piloting a program through the YP committee, trying to get local technical schools to bring in students from the local neighborhood. Keith's had some success with that. And Keith, during that interaction and that training, what kind of information are you seeing? What are you seeing from the students? And what are you, in addition to the surveying training, what are you teaching them about interactions with clients and client relationships?
Trying to get them to be well-rounded in that communication. The students that are at the technical centers, they're typically those students that don't want to talk to people. They're in those jobs where they're going to be in an excavator or going to be a surveyor, and getting them to reach out to start that communication. And that can be tough sometimes to have them open that communication. Especially with the younger people, because they're used to being on social media sometimes more than talking. So the intern that we have now is kind of turned into an employee through this pilot program, and she's doing really well transitioning into an everyday employee. We were out on a job yesterday, and she was talking to clients, talking to neighbors, and if she did come across a question she couldn't answer, she directed the client over to me. And then we continue that conversation and built on that. So it's really good. It's really nice to see the young people talking to people, getting out there, putting themselves out there, not being shy. That's really cool to see. Especially for me, when I was young, I was the same way. I wasn't the first person to start that conversation, especially when I was coming out of high school, not having that confidence. So it's really cool to see coming from those younger people.
That's great. And
Excellent.
something to
Please,
put in
Ashley.
there is that, you know, when you're teaching people about talking to clients, it's important to remember that while you're having a conversation with them, surveyor to surveyor, when they're going to turn around and have that conversation with the client, or even a general person in the public, they're not always going to know, you know, the type of words that we use for certain things. So you want to remind them as they go out and they speak to clients that, you know, certain words like a monument or a POL or something like that, you want to explain what you're saying, or at least use, you know, a point online instead of just the abbreviation.
Yeah, Ashley, that's a great point. It's, you know, don't assume the people you're working with know all the technical lingo, the acronyms, the phrases that you hear 100 times a day. So again, it's you know, back to the earlier point, it's, you know, almost like you're speaking to your, you know, an 8-year-old, explaining things to them. It's okay to, you know, you can speak to them and explain things without treating them like they're dumb. You can do it in a way so as you want to educate them about this process, so you know, everyone can be pleased with the outcome.
Excellent information. And I think that I got to say, Andrew, having you on this call, I've taken more notes than I have on any of these other ones that we've all done as a group. Having that outside voice and having someone on the line that's able to see surveyors from outside our little world here, I feel, has been very helpful. I have a half a page of notes.
It's tricky because like communicating is one of those things that like everyone thinks they can do. It's one of the things that like we run into when like sometimes like a municipality will, like, you know, want to hire a PR firm or someone to handle social media, and the public will make an outcry because like, well, I can handle social media, or like, you know, how hard is public relations? But it's tricky to do it the right way. You know, people never complain when a municipality is hiring an attorney to do something, because that's considered like a specialized service. So sometimes PR gets a bad rap, but you know, communications ties everything together, and oftentimes can be the difference between success and failure.
Absolutely, and I see it on a daily basis, and I think your comment of everyone thinks they communicate, and everyone can communicate, but not everyone can communicate well. So I think that wraps us up. I'm going to give everybody back a couple minutes. I mean, you guys got to go get lunch at this point. I really appreciate everyone who's been on, everyone who's had a comment, everyone who's joined us today. Really hope that we've all taken something away from this, and look forward to you guys joining us again next time.
A lot of great points today, guys. Thanks so much. And before we sign off, I'd like to thank everyone once again for joining us today. A big thank you to Andrew, Lem, and our whole YP committee for your time and dedication to our organization. A short evaluation will be sent by email this afternoon. We would sincerely appreciate if you could take just a few minutes to provide some feedback for our YP committee. So that's the close of today's presentation. Thanks again for attending, and have a wonderful weekend.